Okay, wait, no, stop, shut up. Drop what you are doing. Stop watching my video and go Google the missing scientists. It's nuts. I've been hearing about it for weeks on Reddit, and then like a couple of weeks ago, sort of like outlets with lesser credibility, UK Daily Mail, picked it up. This case of these missing American scientists. And when the Daily Mail picked it up, I read the story and I was like, man, I'm sure this is bullshit, but man, if it were even half true, that'd be crazy. Then this week, it came up in a White House press conference. And obviously this White House is what it is, but still, when something comes up in a White House press conference, that's real news. So last night I sat down and I was like, I'm gonna figure this out for myself. I'm just kind of interested in this story. These tabloids are saying one thing, people on Reddit are saying other things. Let's figure this out. I made a spreadsheet. This is what media literacy involves. You have to do the work yourself. Even if you accept the facts as they are presented, the overarching story has to come to you. You got to build the story yourself. You got to make these connections yourself. And so I made a spreadsheet, and I put all these scientists' names in it, and I put their causes of death or whether they were missing. Y'all, this is not about UFOs. The Daily Mail ran a story like UFO researchers going missing. Like that's not, the media is running the story as being about UFOs because then it's a lot easier to dismiss. As we have said from the beginning on this channel, we dismiss crazy conspiracy theories at our own peril. Think about what would happen. Here's the story. The story is top US scientists in the fields of fusion and rocket propulsion are going missing or being murdered. That's the facts. That's what's happening. If a media outlet came out and said that would be a much, much weightier story than, are these people working on UFOs? I don't know. Maybe they were working on UFO. Like, for all I know, I don't know. Whatever. It doesn't matter. But when you present it as that, it's immediately like, okay, we're watching the X-Files here. Cool. But that doesn't change the fact that in what I assume is a very small community of people, I mean, how many top scientists are there working in these fields, that 11 people since 2022 have mysteriously disappeared or been murdered or killed themselves after specifically saying they were not going to kill themselves. So once again, the facts of the story are one thing, and then the conclusions that you draw are another. I made my spreadsheet, and I started taking notes on these people individually. And I went to a bunch of different news sources, and I Googled them. I'll Google all the names individually and verified these facts as they were presented. Air Force, active duty Air Force general walks out of his house without his phone, but takes his wallet and handgun, never seen again. Another top scientist walks out of her house, leaves two phones, leaves her personal phone and her government-issued phone, both of which have been wiped clean. She's seen on surveillance camera walking down a random road with a backpack. Never seen again. Two scientists gunned down in their own homes in a targeted attack. One guy was the one. This is so weird. One guy was killed by allegedly the Brown University shooter in a separate attack from the Brown University shooting, and the other guy opened his door at 0600 and was shot dead. But the thing that really convinced me was the Air Force general that left with a handgun was not the only person that went missing and was last seen walking away from their home with a handgun. There was another scientist that was seen leaving with a handgun. That's bonkers. We don't have time to get into all the connections, all the Fox Mulder red string on the corkboard stuff. We don't have time for that. I'm going to leave a couple of links to the Daily Mail story and then this other thing that I found. I'll leave that down below. And if you don't see any more Sunday antisocials, and if somebody sees me walking away from my house with a handgun and I left my phone at home, that would suck. That's not worth that. Never mind. Don't go to the links. We never talked about this. But it's starting to have that feel, if you've ever read more than one story deep into the Epstein files, and you're like, wait, I've read that name. Oh, I've read that name too. Hang on, what? It's starting to have that feel. It's really interesting stuff. This is Gribbly's Folly, Sunday Antisocial Hour, that time each week when I smoke my pipe and complain about humanity while answering all of its questions. And if you are a piece of humanity with a question for me, Leave it in the comments down below. And I will answer any question, any burning, itching, scaly, engorged question that is keeping you up at night. I'm your man. I will give you a philosophical answer to whatever's bothering you. I'm basically like a philosopher therapist. That sounds like a dinosaur. Hashtag your question, Ask Gribbs, and I will answer it. That's how this works. Let's get to them. Rafa asks Gribbs, okay, trucks for storm chasing aren't as safe as the movies tell us. Then talk about your ideal features of a storm watching bunker. My ideal storm watching bunker would be a mobile bunker that could chase the storms. It's true that trucks aren't safe. I want to know, I should Google this while I'm Googling other conspiracies. Has there ever been an Abrams tank that was hit by a tornado? Like, would that be safe? Surely that would be safe. How much does an Abrams tank weigh? M1 Abrams main battle tank weighs 66.8 metric tons, or 73.6 short tons. What are short tons? Why you gotta insult the tons like that? Average train locomotive weight. The average train locomotive weighs around 200 short tons, or 400,000 pounds. So a short ton is just a ton? 2,000 pounds? American railroads measure in short ton. Why are they shorter than other? Okay, I don't know. 400,000 pounds. So yeah, the Abrams tank is not safe, because if a tornado can move a locomotive, it's definitely going to be able to move it. Okay, all right, we need a bunker. Hang on. One more option here. Boom. The NASA crawler transporter, which is the giant thing that moves the space shuttle into place, weighs 6 million pounds. Maximum speed of 1.6 kilometers per hour when loaded. So that is not enough to keep up with a thunderstorm. But our baseline is a bunker here. So I mean, it does move. It burns 125.7 gallons of, I'm sure, very specialized fuel per kilometer, which would be a hell of a tax write-off if we just had an LLC. Who wants to go in? So we get the crawler, right? And we build some titanium aero fins. We come up with a cool name, and we build them out of titanium so that when the tornado wrecks them, further tax write-off. Wait. Most brilliant idea yet. We call it the Trump crawler so that we get whatever we want, I think, from the government. That's how that works. We just drive it over the east wing of the White House. I'm just sorry, we thought there was going to be a tornado here. If you've got something this big, though, I don't see why you can't requisition some naval guns, like from a battleship. Like, why can't you just put some on the crawler? Then you got to have a crew to staff it. I don't know how we're going to pay for this, even with the tax write-offs, unless there's a subscription model. We're going to need a subscription model. Like, for only $29.95 a month, you can subscribe to live in a world where this thing exists, which I think is a pretty good deal. Kenjiro5775 says, I used to suffer massively from allergies due to pollen, especially in my eyes. Everything changed when I got hard contact lenses instead of glasses. They hurt terribly. They would get uncomfortable if my eyes dried out. All that eye trauma with the lenses made pollen a non-issue. So what you're saying is I need to build up eye calluses. Sorry, Kenjiro, I don't think I'm going to adopt your plan. Mary Ann Spencer says, smoking is adding to your allergy problems. Yeah, of course it is. That makes it my audience's fault. I do this for you. For you. Back to the crawler. We're going to need the naval guns to fire, naval artillery rounds, obviously, but with GoPros taped to the front of them into the tornado. We can save money on the tape. I think, just like off-brand duct tape would be fine, and you're only going to use it once, right? So we shoot them into the tornado, and that's not part of the subscription. It's part of the Patreon that we have as artists, to give people a little something extra if the regular subscriber thing isn't enough for them. Speaking of which, you can join my Patreon for only $3 a month. Well, it wouldn't really be as cool as that, though. Sorry, that's why it's only $3 a month. Just know that your $3 a month will go directly up my nose in allergy medications. I'm not like an SNL cast member or anything. I'm not that fun. Al Molitar says, I've heard that older men simply shouldn't take Benadryl. At PRO says, I don't do common social media because it fertilizes social stupidity, and instead of advancing humanity, it degrades it to the lowest common denominator. It's an addictive drug, much like the game on Star Trek The Next Generation. Nerd! Ask Gribbs, do you have any real meerschaum pipes? What is up with you guys? These are Missouri meerschaum. It's in the name, Missouri meerschaum. Do you have any real meerschaum pipes? They are said to offer the smoothest smoking experience, and I've seen some exquisitely carved ones whose value probably exceeds my net worth. That is why I do not have any real meerschaum pipes. I'm sure they are very nice. I'm sure they are, and they look nice. The aesthetic has never appealed to me. I became a pipe smoker because I wanted a giant piece of wood hanging out of my mouth. And meerschaum pipes just don't do it. Then, having done the briar pipe thing when I discovered corncob pipes, I realized smoking properties matter, and corncob pipes are always going to be superior. I have yet to have a corncob pipe that's smoked inferior to a briar. I've had some that are like equal. Some of my nicer smoking briars are as good as my corncob pipes. And I still smoke my briars because I love them, right? But I've never had one that's worse than a briar pipe. And they're $5. Actually, they're not anymore. I just checked. They're not $5. They're much more expensive. They're like $10. Thanks, Obama. @PRO ends his comment by saying, I live every day wishing for my friend to arrive, which in the context of the poem that he quoted in the last episode is a very dark thing to say. This is the problem. This is the problem with our modern ages. People drop really dark shit on you, and in a normal time, you would say, hey, I things are going to get better. It's going to be okay. It's not worth thinking those kind of really dark thoughts. It's all going to be fine, and I want to support you. Now we're just like, yeah, I can't really argue with you. But the reason that we wait for the friend to arrive, and rather than courting the friend for ourselves, is we're talking about death here. But by the way, this was suicide that we're discussing. What you give up with that is agency. And we are in a time when you don't get a pass giving up your agency. You've got to keep every ounce of agency that you can. So I know you well enough to know, PRO, that that's the thing that I can say that will appeal to your sensibilities, rather than, oh, it's going to get better. Hang on to your agency. But before we go down that road any further, Martin Stinsby asked Gribbs, what's the largest animal you'd be able to cling film to a lamppost? Asking for a friend. I live for these questions. This is what I was put on earth to do. First, I thought it was really cling film is not a term that I use here in the South. We call that saran wrap. I would just call it plastic wrap, or I guess I would call it cling wraps. I had to Google it. I was like, what is this? Is this something that the Zoomers are saying? What is cling film? Like no cap. That's some bussin' cling film. I have to ask, is the animal awake and conscious while I'm cling filming it to a lamppost? Because that really makes a difference. And if you can sedate the animal, I think then it's basically a question of how strong is the cling film, the saran wrap, and how much can you wrap it? I could see a world in which you had a NASA crawler load of cling film. You could hold a rhinoceros to a lamppost with that. If the animal is alive and fighting back, the largest one, I'm going to go with like alligator snapping turtle. Actually, I might go with alligator. Like a small one, because if you can, they're long and skinny, right? So if you could not get your face bitten off by finding a alligator wrestling tutorial on YouTube, 2-3 minutes, you can put on the, make it 2x speed, so you don't have to spend too much time on it. I believe it would be well suited, especially if you had a friend to just help you get the first wrap started. Otherwise, I'm going to go with possum. I think, the thing about a possum is, like smaller animals, sure, you could just brute force them and then take the hits, right? Possums they're larger than a squirrel, but they're gonna play dead. You just pick that thing up and wrap it on there, no big deal. Anything larger, like a raccoon that's not gonna play dead, I think people underestimate how much something like that can eviscerate you before you get the job done. I think, okay, the real answer is if I were willing to sacrifice my life to cling film an animal to a lamppost. I think I could probably do it with a raccoon, but I would sustain fatal injuries. Brad6054 asks Gribbs, what are your thoughts on the healing process and bringing the two sides together? We have been divided by design. The United States, there are more people in the middle, per se, than one side or another. You are correct that we have been divided by design. I don't want to bring the two sides together. There are not two sides. There are not two sides. There's right and there is wrong. And looking at history, a big mistake was made in this country when we didn't execute the leaders of the Confederacy. That's just a completely unrelated history lesson. That's a feature we should do more with that. But yeah, we fought a war and then we didn't, for example, execute Jefferson Davis. And wait, did we execute Davis? Wait, no, he was a cross-dressing pervert, right? He had a drag show and exposed himself to a bunch of little children. Intelligence was received this morning. This is from Secretary of the Navy Gideon Wells. Intelligence was received this morning of 18 something, not the current. So the intelligence was received this morning of the capture of Jefferson Davis in southern Georgia. Davis was taken while disguised in women's clothes, a tame and ignoble letting down of the traitor. We still should have killed him. Like, we just should have made it very obvious that we weren't killing him because he apparently was a drag queen. We should have been like, listen, we're going to get Chappelle Roan to be on the firing squad, just so everybody knows. It's not about the drag. I don't think it's ignoble to wear women's clothes, especially not from that time period. Women's clothes in that time period is basically what the average male hipster in Asheville is wearing right now. And the men's clothes from that time period is what the average Asheville lesbian is wearing right now. And that's hot. The whole point of America is that we kill fascists. There's so many reasons this video might get taken down. Okay. All right. To answer the question, we kill fascists. That's what we do in our finest hours. In our darkest hours, we are the fascist, and that sucks. And that's why we had a war over it, and then other things that we don't talk about, right? Because we want to think of ourselves as good people. But the point of America is that when we're thinking of ourselves, our definition of good is anti-fascist. Anti-fascist. There is a movement called Leaving MAGA, and it's for people who are starting to doubt, are starting to realize they have been victims of a cult, and I think that's great. And I think that the people who realize what's going on should absolutely be welcomed back into society with open arms. I am not advocating violence. I don't want to kill anybody for their beliefs, no matter how abhorrent they are. That's why we let the KKK march in this country. Back in normal times, that was why we let the KKK march, is because you allow evil people to be evil on display so that the rest of us can learn. So there's a big, wide space between advocating violence against people for their beliefs and hanging traitors to the Union, which is what we should have done to the leaders of the Confederacy. And within that space fall people like the subscribers to this Telegram channel. Have you heard about the Rape Academy with the Telegram channel or feed or whatever, chat? I don't know how Telegram works. Where men teach each other how to rape women and record it. Those men, if you're exposed as being part of that, you should never feel safe again. I'm not saying violence should be committed against those men. I'm saying they should fear that violence will be committed against those men. So wherever that gray area falls. So if you're MAGA and you're part of the Leaving MAGA movement and you're leaving the cult, good for you. You're welcome with open arms. If you, after last week, if you still support this man, I am never going to have a polite conversation with you. You are not welcome in my presence. When a man presents himself as Jesus and isn't rejected by the people who say that Jesus is the most important thing to them, those people are not just dumb, they're evil. So that's a direct answer to the question. We don't bring the two sides together because, and I honestly don't think there are two sides. I think there's right and wrong, and there's the vast majority of the American public that's just like, what the fuck, y'all? And then there's this tiny minority, At this point, it's a tiny minority that's left that still supports this man. And the only reason is that they're evil. But you are right. The division is by design. We're going to be talking about that a lot on the channel going forward. It's so frustrating not to have the time to talk about all the things that I want to, like not just in each individual video, but like I'm constantly fighting to get to the work that I want to do. But I've been thinking a lot, been taking a lot of notes on the process of getting a new computer and working with software. I've been taking a lot of notes. I have a lot of thoughts. I'll share them soon. Here's what we got to talk about. Last episode, Alex Nielsen, 5964, had an Ask Gribbs question that I did not answer. And we're going to circle back because, of course, the promise, the shining beacon on the hill of the Gribbly's Folly Sunday Antisocial Hour is that I answer any question. But I wanted to think about this one. Ask Gribbs, I think one of your misapprehensions is that they are all Russian agents. Centrist, dim, all the way right. They are all agents of authoritarianism and empire. Yes, that makes them susceptible to Putin, but they are agents, pure and simple, of capital. We should better learn from the fact that we cannot tell the difference. They have built the current world on short-term gains. That's the world they're killing. The other world will still be here when they are gone. We never deserved 99-cent gas and fresh bananas from halfway around the world, and it made us complacent. I'm not in despair at all. The new world is struggling to be born. Now is the time of monsters. Okay, first, you're a commie, but that's okay. We can get past that. In fact, we have to get past that because of what I just said. We have to learn to separate our ideology from the actual morality of our actions. So while I don't think I'm ever going to get on board with like the new world is struggling to be born, that's just not me. That's not me. On the other hand, yeah, that's great. Like if someone out there feels like they are progressing toward a goal where people live better, that's great. And you are probably right that my misapprehension is a wonderful word for it, that this is all motivated by Russian influence in our government. That's probably a more narrow view than is accurate because you, again, are correct that a lot of these actors are motivated purely by something that I can understand why you would call it capitalism. I think you are making a similar misapprehension, and that if we were to have a sober discussion, which is hard on a YouTube video where like the shtick is that I'm me, right? It's hard. But if we were to sit down and have a sober discussion by a fire, smoking our pipes, I think the conclusion that we would come to is capital is just another excuse for a lust for power. Like, what does Elon Musk really want with more capital? I understand he has a compulsion to make it, but what is it that it really provides for him? And I mean, just to address, because we don't have time, but like to address the market manipulation that is the Iran conflict. I mean, like it's like you drive by the bank and it's like, oh, it's 127, it's 85 degrees, and the Strait of Hormuz is open, closed. That is absolutely a tool of capital, that kind of market manipulation. And there's a lot of people making billions of dollars off the ruin of the global economy and the incredible loss of life that this situation has brought. I still don't think it's the deepest reason. At base, there is a type of person that lusts for power. And the fundamental flaw of our society is that we allow a rah-rah Soviet Union, rah-rah gung-ho America, communism, capitalism, whatever. We allow these things that are basically just like aesthetics, that like skins that we place over the real politic of the machinery of our societies. We allow these things to become tribal signals that trigger something in the minds of the apes that we are. If we are to move forward in society with our differences, we're going to have to place a very high priority on recognizing the other type of person. They don't care about all that stuff. All of that is a show. They just want power. And the reason that I am not afraid to use the word evil to characterize these people is that at these extremes of the human condition, these personalities, you cannot fully express power by doing good. If a parent says to their kid, hey, listen, I'm going to make you eat right and brush your teeth and go to bed early, that is ultimately good for that child. It might suck. It might be an abusive relationship with power dynamics, but ultimately that's good. If you want to fully express power, you have to make someone helpless do something terrible. That's where we are. That's where we have gotten. That's Stalin. That's Hitler. The machinations of American society or post-Stalinist Soviet Union. They sucked. And there's a lot of bad stuff that happened. But what we're talking about here is this ultimate level of the expression of power over other human beings. That's the thing that we have to go forward recognizing. And it's the thing that normal people like us have to divorce ourselves from. We have to refuse to be a part of it. And that's what we're going to be talking about if I can ever get my shit together and actually put my thoughts together in a cohesive way to bring it forward. I don't have, there's not going to be anything dramatic of like how we're going to change things, but I do have thoughts about how we can say, I refuse to be a part of this. And that is what we will be doing going forward if I don't get disappeared, which I don't really think who knows? Who knows? But you know what? Just for the record, I am not suicidal and I don't have any health conditions that would, I went to my doctor this week, got checked out. My blood pressure is good. The only thing, I do smoke a pipe. That's true. But you don't find someone suddenly dead of oral cancer. That's not really, just so you know, if that happens, they got me. Thank you. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Do justice. Keep the ends out for the ties that bind.